It is Friday, August 22nd, 2025. I'm Heath Lambert, and the biggest story of the week is the Washington, D.C. crime crackdown.
Residents of Washington, D.C. and the surrounding region are still adapting to life under federal control after the president seized authority over the city's police force and deployed the National Guard.
I feel safe walking through the city each and every day. I feel safe, so we don't need troops in the city.
The Justice Department is investigating whether Washington, D.C. police officials falsified crime data. This comes as more states send National Guard troops to the nation's capital.
President Trump's efforts to make D.C. safe again are working. There have been a total of 465 arrests since the start of this operation on Thursday, August 7th.
Two weeks ago, President Donald Trump took the extraordinary step of federalizing law enforcement in Washington, D.C., citing an unacceptable level of violent crime.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that.
The president's intervention in the nation's capital is three-pronged. First, the president has ordered hundreds of National Guard troops into the city to help reduce crime. Second, he has assigned a large number of federal law enforcement officers to assist officials in D.C. in the task of reducing crime. And third, he has taken control of the Washington, D.C. police force, a power he can use only for 30 days without the involvement of Congress. Like many actions of the president, this decision has taken over the national conversation and led to a fierce debate. If anything, this story is bigger than it seems. It serves as a case study for many of the strains in our society and the cracks in our culture. The biggest story of the week brings to the forefront the crucial issues of authority, honesty, and order. The issue of authority is massive these days in nearly every issue at the top of the headlines. Authority is the power to act. In the United States, authority is conferred democratically through elections whose winners receive authority to act on the public's behalf. The issue of authority is controversial in our world today for at least two reasons. First has to do with the great wealth and power of our American civilization, which is a unique achievement in human history and is so great that many people are drawn to positions of authority for less than noble reasons. Second, we're living in a season of such sharp policy divisions that the fight to attain positions of authority is increasingly ruthless. It creates a situation where too many believe that authority must be attained at any cost. One way we've seen that in the drama in Washington, D.C. is with a comment from the mayor of the city, Muriel Bowser. On social media, she said, "American soldiers and airmen policing American citizens on American soil is un-American." This statement is disingenuous and unhelpful. The fact of the matter is that America is a nation of laws. One of the most American things you can do is to win elected office and then use that position to administer the laws of the land. That constitutes genuine authority. The mayor's post accusing the president of un-American behavior is not an exercise in civics. It's an effort at political destabilization. In an effort to gain more authority herself, she wants to damage the president's authority. This is just a small microcosm of the kind of disingenuous political debates we increasingly see about matters of public policy. A republic is sick when it is so drunk on the lust for authority that it loses the ability to engage in meaningful debate and is only interested in misrepresenting opponents for the purpose of its own authority. That gets to the second theme we see in this week's headline, which is the one of honesty. One of the most obvious issues in the national conversation has to do with the truthfulness of debated information. The president was able to take federal control of Washington, D.C. by declaring that the city's high crime constituted a state of emergency. Those opposed to the president's action argue against his argument and say that crime in the nation's capital has declined. Others respond to that claim that while it's true that crime in 2025 is lower in D.C. than it was in the 1990s, It's also true that crime has been rising in the district since 2012. The counterclaim to this argument is that while that may be true, crime has gone down from where it was a year ago. The Trump administration has responded that the crime rate is still too high and has launched an investigation into false reporting about the inaccurate crime data. Americans deserve to know the facts about crime in the nation's capital that have led to this action, and the lack of clear information is maddening. It is impossible to have good policy without credible information. Dishonest people know this and try to thwart the policy they oppose, not with sound arguments, but with dishonest information. Americans from Jacksonville to Juneau have no way to independently corroborate crime statistics in the nation's capital in this fog of disinformation. That is the point. This whole mess reminds us of the importance of the truth and how various factors make it challenging to know the truth. One of those factors is distance. The further away the information is from us, the harder it is to know the truth about it. It's easier to know the truth about something happening in our own homes than it is to know the truth about events in a distant location because of our increased reliance on the reporting of people we do not know. Another factor challenging our ability to know the truth is the complexity of information. Simple information is easier to embrace as true than the more complex kind. It turns out that the recording and reporting of complex crime data in a major city is pretty complicated, and so the truth about it becomes harder to know. A final factor challenging our ability to know the truth is the high-stakes nature of information. We can get trustworthy evidence about what to order from our favorite restaurant based on the information from one menu, because the stakes are pretty low. But when we're talking about federalizing law enforcement in the nation's capital city, the stakes increase, the personal reasons for dishonesty rise, and the truth becomes harder to grasp. This is all a profound reminder of the importance of truth, how desperate we are for people to tell it, and how a culture of dishonesty reveals a sin-sick society. A final, crucial issue for Christians to consider in the headlines this week is the one of order. It's interesting to consider the nature of the disagreement I just mentioned about crime statistics in Washington, D.C. Competing authorities disagree on the truth about crime statistics, but disagreeing parties agree on one thing: low crime is good and high crime is bad. Whether illegal immigration or crime in our nation's cities, people might lie about how often it is happening, but nobody argues for more crime. That's because our society cannot function where guilty people are allowed to oppress the innocent. A culture where criminals are in charge is a culture at the edge of collapse. We all know it's good news when the D.C. Police Officers Union reports that since Trump's intervention, violent crime is down 22%, robberies have dropped by 46%, carjackings are down 83%, and the Capitol has gone a week without a homicide for the first time in months. Proverbs 14:34 says, "Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people." We need to pray for this kind of righteousness in our society today. We need to pray for righteousness on the part of the men and women who serve in positions of authority. We need to pray for an honest society that is increasingly committed to the truth instead of deception. And we need to pray for peace and order in our streets. And above all, we need to remember that righteousness is chiefly a gift from God that comes to those who turn from sin and trust in Jesus. And all those who do have the hope of one day living in a celestial city far better than anything the American founding fathers ever imagined. In that glorious place, there will be perfect peace and complete honesty, because it will be ruled by a glorious king with infinite authority and spotless righteousness. Until we get to that perfect place, we need to pray for this imperfect place. That's the biggest story of the week. I'll see you next Friday when we examine next week's biggest headline.